Thank you so much, Javon. That was beautiful. I could not figure this out. I was exercising regularly. I was eating sensible meals, but I was not losing my holiday weight. You might remember about a month or so ago, I even said that by the end of March, my holiday weight gain would be gone. But my holiday weight gain wasn't going anywhere, and I didn't know why. What was going on? Then I was listening to a podcast by Craig Groeschel. And something that Craig Groeschel said bugged me. Groeschel said that if you don't have a recent I used to, as in I used to do this, but now I do that, then you've got a bad habit lurking somewhere. And the sentence bugged me because I did not have a recent I used to. I didn't have one. Yet I knew it had to be there. Where was the bad habit I could not see? Then one night, as I grabbed my beautiful bag of Trader Joe's ghost pepper chips for my evening snack, it hit me. I knew what my I used to needed to be. To lose weight, you measure your portions. You don't bring a bag of chips to watch TV. You bring a bowl of chips, and when the bowl is done, you are done too. I knew that, but I wasn't doing it. I was grabbing the whole bag. Now, I told myself, oh, Kennedy, you will not eat the whole bag. But by the end of the show, if that bag was not gone, it was pretty darn close. And I realized that's why I'm not losing weight. I need to nix the bag and get the bowl. That had to be my I used to. As in I used to eat from the bag, and now I eat from the bowl. So far, it's working. The weight is coming back off. But here's the thing. I knew eating a big bag of chips was not a good thing. So why was I doing it? I was telling myself a story. I wanted those chips. I desired them. So I told myself, Kennedy, you have worked hard. You have exercised. You deserve those chips. And as the bag emptied, I told myself, you deserve a few more. Before it was over, my story went from I deserve those chips to you need them, all of them. Your body demands those chips. Now, why do I tell you this story? It's because I'm not the only one who uses the story of desire, deserve, demand. People use it to rationalize all sorts of bad choices. And then those bad choices go on to mess up all sorts of other things. For example, you could say the story of desire, deserve, demand lies behind those Russian troops sitting on the border of Ukraine right now. But why do people do it? Why do I do it? Why do you do it? More crucially, how do you stop that story, that false story of desire, deserve, and demand? And the story of a man who told himself this story with terrible consequences, God shows you the way. Let's listen and hear what God has to say. As we read it from the book of Samuel, beginning in the first verse of the 11th chapter. Listen and hear the word of the Lord. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab with his officers and all Israel with him. They ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem. It happened late one afternoon, When David rose from his couch and was walking about on the roof of the king's house, that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. David sent someone to inquire about the woman. It was reported, "This is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam," one of his soldiers, by the way, "the wife of Uriah the Hittite," another one of his soldiers. So David sent messengers to get her. And she came to him, and he lay with her. Now she was purifying herself after her period. And then she returned to her house. The woman conceived, and she sent and told David, "I am pregnant." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. In life, the story of desire, deserve, and demand leads to all sorts of bad choices. And yet we often live in this story anyway, even when we can see the bad choices it brings. So how do you break out of that story? You realize what lies behind that story is something deeper. A desire to hide from the uncomfortable, from the difficult, from what you fear to face. Fear has captured you. And even only as you face your captor does freedom come. And what enables you to face the fear? You realize what God, out of love, has already faced for you. But before we can get to this freedom, we need to see how this fear works by looking how it is working in this story. As the story begins, do you see what is going on? David is hiding. He is hiding from his responsibilities as king. We know this because David is hanging out at home. Is home a bad place to be? No. That is, unless you're supposed to be somewhere else, like work. And David was. The story tells us right at the beginning, spring is when kings go to war. Now, it's not like the flowers start blooming and kings start thinking to themselves, "Hey, let's go kill some people." No, it's practical. In spring, you have the weather to move the troops around, to defend yourself against your enemies. So spring comes, the Israelite army goes to war with the Ammonites, and where is David? He's hanging at home. But he's the king. The king's job is to be with the soldiers, sharing the risk and hardships of battle. Now, I can understand David wanting to take the spring off. Every year he was going to battle, living in the tents, risking his life, eating lousy food. It was time for a break. Things were good. He had defeated most of Israel's enemies. Wasn't he entitled to a spring break at the palace? No. God had called him to be king. Leading his nation to defend itself, that's part of the king's job. When David lost sight of that, he was not. When he decided to blow off the battles and hang at the palace, he was not delegating his authority. He was avoiding it. In fact, the story tells you he was literally sleeping on the job. In that culture, people did take a siesta in the middle of the day, like around noon. But when you took the siesta, you didn't lay in your bed or on your couch until the late afternoon, until dusk. But that's what David is doing. He is literally sleeping the day away. It reminds me of that old joke about the mother waking up her son for school. She goes into his room to get him out of bed, but he just pulls the covers up all the more. He says, "Ma, I don't want to go. The kids are always picking on me and none of the teachers like me." And of course the mother goes, "But son, you're the principal. You gotta go." And David is literally living that joke. And he knows it. Now, we don't know why he's hiding. Maybe he's tired of risking his life for one more time in battle. Maybe after years of success, he's scared of failure, of his winning streak ending. Maybe he's just tired of the responsibilities of leadership, but he's not tired of the privileges, like a cushy palace or the power of a king. And who hasn't felt that way? Tired like that. Life is difficult, especially in the middle or hopefully at the end of a pandemic. It is hard. It is tiring. Everyone has days when you want to pull the covers up and sleep the day away. But hiding from your problems doesn't make them grow smaller. If anything, the problems usually get bigger. But that's what David does. He hides. Instead of facing his responsibilities, confronting his fears, David instead hides out in the palace. Not only that, David hides from his hiding. He tells himself a story, the story of desire, deserve, demand. David says, I want to rest, to take a break from being a king. And I deserve that after all I've done for these people. So by God, I'm going to get it. I'm going to send those armies away, and while they fight, I am going to take long afternoon naps. But he knows deep inside what he's doing. He's hiding. And likely we've been there. We've had moments where we have opted for the comfort of avoidance rather than the discomfort of the difficult. Hopefully at some point we wake up to face the music and we do what needs to be done. We confront what needs to be confronted. But when David wakes up, he still cannot face it. Instead, he looks off the palace roof and sees a woman bathing. Now, being on top of her roof, this woman presumes her privacy. What she doesn't know is that her king, sleeping the day away on the roof of his palace, is invading her privacy. But then David takes it further. He finds out who the woman is. He discovers she is not only the daughter of Eliam, one of his soldiers, now fighting for him on the battlefield, she is also married to another one of his soldiers, Uriah. But none of that stops David from doing what he has decided to do. And let's make it clear. At no point does the Bible describe Bathsheba as having any decision in what follows. David is not betraying two loyal soldiers by having an affair. He is not having an affair. He is committing an assault. Yet still David hides from the reality of his abuse of power. How? He tells himself the same story. I desire this woman, and as king, don't I deserve what I desire? Can't I demand it? And as we leave this part of the story, for the first and only time do we hear the voice of Bathsheba. She sends the king a simple 3-word message. I am pregnant. And in that message, we see a painful distinction, the painful distinction, that lies between good choices and bad choices. See, generally good choices in our lives do not offer immediate gratification, but over time they pay off big. Exercising for one day will not get you much of a payoff. You might even get payback. The next day you might feel sore and tired. But over time the payoff comes. But bad choices work the opposite way. They give immediate gratification. But over time, they bring brutal paybacks. Smoke a cigarette, smell good. I love the high. Do that for 25 years, pretty brutal payback. And David faces payback here. His assault on Bathsheba was already known among the palace staff. After all, he had used them to bring Bathsheba to him. But now everyone will know. After all, Uriah, her husband, has been at war. No way could he have conceived this child. And I wish I could tell you that David, with this news, comes out of hiding. He confesses his crime. He does whatever he can to repair the damage his story of desire, deserve, and demand has caused. But if you know the story, you know David does not do that. He tries to cover up his crime first by calling Uriah home so he can sleep with his wife. When Uriah, out of loyalty to his soldiers on the field, refuses, David still will not fess up. Instead, he sets up Uriah to be killed on the battlefield. And then when Uriah is dead, he adds Bathsheba to his collection of wives. In the end, through the prophet Nathan, God does call David out and force him to confront his crimes. And for the rest of David's life, the ripple effects of his crime infect his family so deeply it results in the violent death of 2 of his children, actually a brother killing another brother, and the near loss of his entire kingdom. Now, hopefully what you hide from will never lead you to such a place. But however you and I hide, it might differ from what David did in degree, but it does not differ in kind. In other words, my hiding in a bag of ghost pepper chips lies on just one end of the spectrum as a hiding that led David to rape and murder. You see, when you and I hide from the difficult, from the challenging, when we hide from what we fear instead of facing it, it never brings us to a good place. The preacher Steve Carter put it well. He says, ultimately, what begins as a means of protecting ourselves, which it really doesn't protect us, but it ends up hurting not only us, but those around us. It's like hiding a pile of junk underneath a rug and expecting no one to trip over it. But hold on, I'm probably not saying anything you don't already know. When I'm avoiding, when I am hiding, I know it. And yet I still do it. I imagine it's the same for you. So why? Why do I still do it? Why do you still do it? In the end, it's because we believe we are alone in our fear. We tell ourselves we have no one on our side, no one really for us. We have no one to whom we can be vulnerable. We can reveal how inadequate we feel, how embarrassed, how even ashamed of our own insecurities and weaknesses and fears. See, we believe that we have no one to face our fears with us. And so we avoid them. And we look for comfort in all the wrong places. But what if that is not true? What if you are not alone? G.K. Chesterton put this well. He said, there are no words to express the abyss between isolation and having one ally. He said, it may be conceded to the mathematician that 4 is twice 2, but 2 is not twice 1. 2 is 2,000 times 1. And the wondrous good news is you're not alone. You do have an ally. You have the greatest ally of all. On the night before Jesus died, he desired to avoid what was to come. He asked God for a way out, for a way for this cup, as he put it, to pass from me. As he faced that fear, he asked his friends to stay with him, and they didn't. Instead of facing the fear with Jesus, They fell asleep on the job. They left Jesus alone. And even then, Jesus did not fall away from facing what Jesus had to face. Jesus instead faced that day. That day that would not only rip him from his life, but from the communion he had experienced in God forever. Jesus went to that cross. Jesus fell into a place of unimaginable darkness. He faced being alone, more alone than any being has ever experienced in existence. And why did Jesus do that? He faced being utterly alone, so you and I would never be. Unlike David, Jesus did go into battle for you. Jesus faced your greatest enemies, your fears, your inadequacies, your failings, even your death. And out of his love for you, for me, Jesus defeated those enemies forever. And when you know that, when you know God is for you like that, you get it. You don't need to hide. Because whatever pain, whatever difficulties, whatever challenges you face, you do not face them alone ever. Why? Because you have an ally who, even when you fall, holds you by the hand. An ally who never lets you go. And why won't he let you go? Because he loves you. And Jesus will not stop loving you until the very end. Until in that love you find the freedom to leave all your hiding places behind, to enter into that glorious freedom where you become everything that God created you to be, everything that God yearns for you to be. So where are you hiding? Where is Jesus calling you out to face your fears? You can come out. You can stop hiding and avoiding and looking for comfort in all the wrong places. After all, you are not alone. Jesus is with you. Jesus is with you all the way.